You're tuning into something different, something deeper. Welcome to a space where the unseen becomes seen, where the patterns beneath reality are decoded. This isn't just a podcast, it's a journey into the mechanics of belief, perception, and the multidimensional truths shaping our world. If you've ever felt like an outsider looking in, questioning the systems you're told to follow, you're in the right place. This is the OUTKAST, the Pattern Podcast. Let's dive in.
You know, it's interesting when you think about it, how often we might be getting these little hints or nudges in everyday life, almost like messages trying to guide us somehow. But yeah, so often they just seem to fly right under the radar, don't they?
They really do. And, that really takes us back to how how humans have always kind of engaged with the world around them.
Right.
The sources we looked at for this deep dive really emphasize that our ancestors, they had this deep-seated feeling, the sense that everything, nature, objects, the stars, it was all alive with meaning, like it was trying to communicate.
Yeah, a very different vibe from how many of us experience things today, feeling kind of separate.
Exactly, that sense of detachment.
We've sort of lost that feeling of a meaningful connection, haven't we? But what if it's still there, just waiting for us to tune back in? Today we're looking at something called the OUTKAST Pattern Recognition Experience. It's based on some excerpts from a work titled The OUTKAST Pattern Recognition of Signs, Symbols, and the Patterns. But the core idea, when you dig into it, is actually quite intuitive, I think. It's about paying attention, really. Paying attention to the possibility that the world is, communicating.
Exactly. Through signs, symbols, patterns, all these things we might usually ignore.
So our mission here, for you listening, is to explore how this OUTKAST pattern idea suggests we can interpret these things. It's like learning a new language, almost.
Or maybe remembering an old one. Seeing the connections, understanding what they might mean for you, for how you see reality. It's about going deeper than just the surface level.
Okay, so let's get into that main idea.
Yeah.
Pattern recognition. The source presents it as a way to decode reality, to see past the illusions, maybe.
Yeah, discerning truth from, deception. It's framed as this really fundamental skill, like something an ancient shaman might have, or, someone deeply connected to their dreams.
And the claim is that if you master this, you can see through falsehoods, resist being manipulated.
That's the idea. Because you're seeing the underlying structure. The source uses this great phrase, the syntax of the unseen. It insists that these patterns aren't just random noise, not just coincidence.
Syntax of the unseen. I like that. It implies there's a logic, a grammar to it all, even if it's hidden.
Precisely. And this leads us straight into the importance of signs and symbols.
Right. The source argues that ancient cultures didn't see these as superstitions, not at all.
No, they saw them as sacred communication, as carriers of wisdom. They used the term Sophia, encoded wisdom.
So things like Norse runes you mentioned, or Egyptian glyphs.
Exactly. Tarot cards, astrology. The source groups these together as systems designed to transmit these deeper archetypal truths. Not just decoration, but meaningful communication.
And it argues that this communication isn't just in ancient symbols, it's happening now. In nature, in dreams, in just everyday stuff.
Yes. For those who are open to it, receptive, the world is full of messages, apparently.
And it makes a distinction for signs, defining them as, metaphysical reflections of inner and outer alignment. Kind of dense.
It is a bit dense, yeah. But the examples help, like seeing a specific bird, a crow on a footbridge, or a beetle showing up at your window.
Those kinds of synchronicities.
Right. The source suggests each of these moments isn't just random. It carries a specific sort of energy signature, a frequency. It's like the outer world mirroring something happening inside you.
So the crow might mean a transition you're thinking about. The beetle may be persistence.
That's the kind of interpretation it encourages. It's about seeing symbolically again, reconnecting perhaps to how early humans felt their place in the cosmos, much more plugged in.
Okay, but then the source talks about a war on meaning. What's that about? It sounds like it's setting up a conflict.
It sort of is. It argues that modern science, while starting out trying to understand things, kind of went down a path where only measurable, quantifiable proof is valued.
And that pushed out other ways of knowing, like intuition or reading symbols.
Exactly. Things that felt meaningful, like signs, got dismissed as mere coincidence. Sacred symbols, they became logos for companies.
And looking for patterns. That became paranoia, right? Seeing connections where there are none.
That's the critique, the source levels. But it pushes back hard. It says, look, The world still communicates this way, through patterns, through metaphors, through those weird little synchronicities that give you goosebumps.
Which is where Carl Jung fits in, I suppose, with synchronicity.
Precisely. Jung's idea that the inner world, our thoughts, feelings, dreams, and the outer material world are connected. They can influence each other.
Like that famous story he told about the patient dreaming of a golden scarab beetle.
And then a real beetle, very similar, taps on the window during the therapy session. Jung saw that as profoundly meaningful, not just chance. It suggested the dream world could manifest, in a way, in waking life.
It shows that maybe spirit and matter aren't so separate, that these moments, these patterns might actually hold real significance.
And ignoring them, the source implies, means we might be missing out on some important guidance or insight.
So how do we use this? The source mentions sovereignty through pattern. That sounds empowering.
It is.
Yeah.
The idea is that our thoughts literally pattern our being, and our doing, in turn, patterns our reality. It frames this as a metaphysical law, not just like positive thinking advice.
So it's more fundamental than just think good thoughts.
Much more. It's about actively tuning your mind, learning to recognize patterns everywhere in data, sure, but also in myths, in your own emotions, in symbols you encounter, even in timing.
And doing that awakens something, an ancient guidance system.
That's the language it uses, like reactivating an innate part of your consciousness that understands this symbolic language.
But it's not automatic, right? There are conditions.
Yes, prerequisites. You need to quiet the mental noise, that constant chatter. You need to drop judgment. Try not to immediately label everything.
And trust your intuition, that gut feeling.
That's crucial. Creating that inner stillness and learning to trust those subtle nudges, it takes practice, especially today.
The source then looks back at our ancestors. How did they practice this symbolic literacy?
Well, it gives examples like consulting the flight of birds before a battle, or reading cracks in heated bones or turtle shells.
Divination, basically.
Yeah.
But maybe seen differently back then.
Perhaps less about predicting a fixed future and more about understanding the energies at play. Reading the flow of water, the rustle of leaves, seeing the world as alive with meaning.
And tools like the I Ching or runes or tarot.
The source argues they aren't just fortune-telling toys. They're like archetypal maps. Maps of energy, of intention, of the forces shaping a situation.
It mentions specific animal signs too, doesn't it? Like frogs meaning abundance.
Yes, frogs for abundance or fertility. Ravens could be warnings or sometimes blessings, depending on context. Dolphins were seen as good omens, signaling land and safety for sailors.
It's a whole different way of relating to the natural world.
Completely.
The idea that everything is fundamentally interconnected at some deep level.
Exactly. That these symbolic systems worked because they resonated with that underlying unity. It's a big claim, but thought-provoking.
Definitely. Now, for anyone listening who feels a bit disconnected from all this, like, I don't see signs, what does the source say?
It's quite encouraging, actually. It says this ability isn't lost, it's innate. It compares it to how a child just knows when a smile isn't real.
Or how an animal senses tension in the air.
Right, that kind of deep, intuitive knowing. It argues we all have it, we've just maybe learned to ignore it or haven't been taught to value it.
So how might these signs show up for us if we start paying attention?
In lots of ways. It could be physical, like a sudden tingle or goosebumps. It could be a mental image flashing in your mind, or just a strong inner knowing, a gut feeling you can't shake.
Symbols in nature, like we discussed, or even things in dreams, songs maybe.
Yes, it appeals to different intuitive styles, mental, emotional, spiritual, physical. The key thing, it says, is that these signs are often persistent. They repeat.
Ah, so if you ignore them, they might just get louder.
That's the idea. It uses an example, Claire's story about repeatedly seeing hawks just before she unexpectedly lost her job. Missed warnings, perhaps.
Makes you think about things you might have brushed off.
It does. And the overall goal seems to be moving towards seeing the world as symbol.
But importantly, it says this doesn't mean throwing science out the window.
Not at all. It's about enriching science, adding soul to it, seeing the layer of meaning alongside the physical facts.
So you can look at a lamp and see it as just a lamp, or you could also see it symbolically as illumination, insight.
Exactly. Or a storm cloud isn't just meteorology. It could also reflect some inner emotional turbulence you're feeling.
So training your perception this way, it changes how you experience the world.
Profoundly, according to the source. It shifts the world from feeling like mechanical chaos into a living oracle.
The living oracle, wow. That implies you're in a conversation with reality rather than just being pushed around by it. Less fear, maybe.
Less fear, more connection, more of a sense of participating in something meaningful.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive on the OUTKAST pattern.
Yeah.
The main thread seems to be that pattern recognition, sign interpretation, it's not just a clever trick. It's presented as a spiritual path.
A path to understanding reality on a much deeper level. The source talks about decoding the matrix, not in a sci-fi way, but understanding the underlying patterns of your life and the world.
Not just a reactor. Living by symbol to get back in tune with the dream of the cosmos. Big ideas.
They are big ideas. It's all aimed at achieving what it calls sovereignty. Aligning with these deeper patterns leads to sovereignty.
And sovereignty here isn't just political freedom, is it? It's more internal.
Much more. It's defined as the power to create, the power to intuit, the power to know things directly, and crucially, the power to act based on that knowing.
So it's about reclaiming your own inner authority, your own discernment.
Precisely. By becoming fluent in this language of signs, symbols, patterns, you become more autonomous, more guided from within, less easily swayed by external noise.
It's a fascinating perspective. So a final thought for you, the listener, building on this.
Maybe take a moment later today or this week. Think about any image, number, animal, or phrase that seems to keep popping up for you, a recurring sign or symbol in your own life.
Don't dismiss it immediately. Just hold it lightly. Just consider what message it might hold for you based on what's going on in your life right now. It could be the start of your own exploration into pattern recognition.